make a way. God have the final say.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kingdom Creatives podcast. Here we educate, motivate, and entertain other fellow creatives. And as you know, we have a guest feature every now and then. We have Mekaiel. Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you did.
Yes,
Yes, you did.
okay, yeah, me. So we have Mekaiel, and we're just gonna be talking about him, how he got into music, particularly music ministry, and anything else that comes up. Yeah. So Mekaiel has a pretty fancy name, and might I add, his music fits. You know, I've listened to a few of his songs, not all of them. I think I heard two. But what I did hear, and I'm not one to I don't believe in propping up people if they don't deserve it. You know, a lot of people like to make people feel good about themselves. I call a spade, gently. Well, I try to. I'm learning. But yeah, I really love what you do. And that's what we're here to discuss. So my first thing is an icebreaker, and I'm gonna put you on the spot before I start asking questions. So how it works is that I give you a word and you have to create a song on the spot. So yeah. I love that reaction. Everybody gives me that reaction. And then they just slay it. Is slay still being used? I feel so old. I don't know. So
I hope I sleep.
The word for the icebreaker is balloon.
Balloon.
I'm sorry, it's the first word that came to mind.
Well, the first thing that's coming to mind, Lord, this is not going to be professional, it's not going to be good at all, but the first thing that comes to mind is, all right. God, you fill me up like a balloon. You, I know I can. Yeah, someday. But God, you fill me up like a balloon. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad, Jesus.
No, I know you can do it, you know. So we have God, you throw me up like a balloon. What else? You had another line.
God. But you're taking me into revealing my secrets as to how I write songs and how to now with that. So yeah, I'm not funny enough. And forgive me for talking, but
no man, talk man.
How I got into music before deciding it was gospel was through a lot of hip hop. So hip hop was the catalyst for bringing me back into music. I could have done exactly it pulling up there, but now it's like it's like
all right. So tell you what, I'm gonna tweak the icebreaker a little bit then, and I'm gonna ask you to do a line or two of your favorite song and tell us why it's your favorite.
All right. Favorite song right now. Before I name the song, through the fire, through the mud, through the valley, through the flood, I won't worry. No, I won't fear. No, 'cause no weapon formed against me shall prosper. That is by Todd Delaney. It's a recent single, and with what I've been presently having to face or deal with, that song has been hitting me differently. Yes, it's scripture, but it's been hitting me different. So that's one of my favorites right now. Yeah.
I get you. So we just heard from you about a song that you really love. And you mentioned that there's a process now that you didn't have before when you started writing music. So tell us
Yeah.
about that. Usually this is where I say, who is Mekaiel? I don't know, but I feel like I want to keep that momentum, and then, closer to the end maybe, or somewhere in the middle, we can go back to that. But I really want to keep that going. So tell us about that process. What was it like? And why do you think that process changed? Was it deliberate, or did you see it happen gradually?
Honestly, there was a bit of being deliberate about it. However, there also was the maturing aspect as a creative and also personally. So for me, as mentioned, hip hop drew me back into music, and I never stopped loving music, but hip hop in itself, I guess, pulled me back in into the like, yeah, man, okay, this thing called music, man, because stopped doing any sort of singing. I grew up in a singing family, and I stopped once my voice started to crack, and there was you can't hit specific notes anymore and whatnot. I was like, yeah, I'm good, no more music, and that's it. But hip hop then pulled me back in. So like I always say, God used that negative aspect, because that part of my life I was very much a very angsty, teenager. So he used that part of my life to pull me back in, and then from there, because I've seen God at work so many times, not just personally for me, but also in my family's life, it's like, okay, I don't want to go down the path of doing mainstream music. I want to do Christian music, gospel music. So that was where, the tools I developed from listening to a lot of hip hop, it helped in terms of the first couple songs I wrote. In terms of probably the first three I will record it. So the first couple songs I've written, they're still in a box. I still go back to them at times whenever I have a new project to see, hey, I wonder if this verse or this chorus could work with something. But the first three songs that were recorded, original material that were recorded, those were written from, just saying, okay, I want to write a song that speaks to this, speaks to that, and the other. Now, give me a task and say, okay, let's sit down and create a song from scratch. Yeah. However, for me, in particular, it's changed to where what I started to realize was that when I wanted to release multiple singles, it wasn't happening like that. For me, God was just allowing like one song. In 2016, I got a bit, I don't want to use the word lucky, but I was able to I guess release 2 songs because but then again, the way the next one was released kind of came close to the end of the year going into the new year. So that's how it was. It was and has been going for me in terms of God has been putting me in positions where it's just one song a year, and outside of pushing it wherever I can push it, those songs were birthed out of life experiences. So every song that you've heard, yes, these first 3 singles, third single, I'm not sure if that's up on YouTube anyway, but the first 2 singles, for sure, they were from the heart, yes. However, all songs later on definitely came out of me having to go through something, or God preparing me for something. So I was very much careful of what I wrote, because it was either I would go through it after, or I went through it before the song. In that, it shaped me, it molded me into who I am today. And finally, I can say that as much as, yes, that has continued in terms of 2019, I released a song, 2020, I released a song, 2021, I released a song, 2022, I released a song, you realize I'm saying a song. However, There is an album on the way that is finished. We've just been tooling it. We had to send it back for mastering and whatnot. So God, in His infinite wisdom, knows what He's doing. And that time for multiple singles in 1 year or however God wants to work it, that's going to happen. But it's shifted. My writing has shifted in terms of I always tell persons I want to be used by God. I'm not afraid of having others write for me, because one of the songs that's on my debut album that was written for me. However, that song spoke to me because in that season 2, I went silent after 2016. I went silent. I just got married. I was managing Minister Samuel Dyer at the time, and I remember God clearly saying, "It's time for you to serve. In order for you to be the leader that I want you to be, it's time for you to serve." So I was like, "Okay, God." And I served for almost 4 years. Close to that. And in 2019, my producer, who is from Antigua, and his wife from Trinidad, we connected through a church tour that was happening down here in Trinidad, and the relationship just. He was like, "Hey, I have a song for you that I believe it suits you," and I needed that because, man, I felt as if, I wasn't, when you're not doing something for a bit, sometimes you get a little bit of imposter syndrome, so that is what was trying to creep up on me, and I just had to say, okay, God, have your way, and He sent someone with something that was outside of all of that, that's where, but that's how my writing, that's how it goes. That's how
have your expectations or expectations of others ever made that process like extremely difficult or frustrating, leading up to the point where you became accepting of what it is? Because I know sometimes it takes a good while before we're like, okay, God, do your thing. So before reaching that place, have your expectations or others' expectations of you ever, cause you to feel annoyed, irritated?
Because for me, what I always like to say is, or not that I like to say, but what is fact is that the first 2 years of me jumping into this thing called gospel music professionally, I was still young, so I was 16 going on 17, and 17 is when I really launched, and there was still the sorting out, okay, where to put, the hype, where to put the energy, where to put the passion, and how to put it and whatnot. So there were some folks that were turned off by it, some folks that grew with me. So they know who I am. However, with that, there was me not truly understanding that God sometimes wants us to be in a specific place, however long that may be, so that we can be built up to what He wants us to be, to what we want ourselves to be too. So for me, it was a lot of, okay, but these folks that I've come up with, they are able to release X amount of songs for the year. Or they're able to produce this EP before me, and that was tough on me, because it's folks that I grew up with, where I'm like, and I say grew up with because that's how it felt like when you now come to this professionally, and you meet specific or other artists, other peers who are like, they're like, We like what you do, you like what they do, but then all of a sudden, boom, they're off, and you're just here with one song I hear, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me it was like, you know, what was going on. Then there were persons that would come, whether solicited or unsolicited, saying, you know, hey, you should try and do this or that and the other. And I'm like, do you know how much sacrifices, or do you know the sacrifice that I'm making to make these things possible? You know, if it's not happening when it is, then what am I to do? You know, I just have to trust in what I'm trusting the process. So that is, in the earlies, that was the case. And for me, when I noticed what was happening, I was like, when I took real notice of what was happening, that was when I was like, oh, okay, God, all right. So, and that's been me ever since, you know. Yeah, the desire for having multiple songs hasn't left me, and meaning multiple songs per year or something hasn't left me. However, I've seen the positives in being able to release one song per year too. You know, and that's on the business side and not just only on the spiritual ministerial side. You know, so for me, I'm like, okay, God, do what you're doing. You know, and
I think I'm getting to that place where the expectations, though they hold us accountable, the expectations aren't greater than God's plan. So in those moments of having to deal with people's expectations, now that you've gotten to a place of acceptance, how do you politely just tell people, you know, this is where it's at, and I appreciate what you're trying to say, but you know, that's not gonna happen, not right now. How do you communicate that, or do you just smile and wave? What do you do?
Sometimes you're remaining silent on that aspect of your life as a creative. It's okay to do, you know, and the most you can do at the point in time is, you know, just remain consistent in whether you're posting videos or statuses or what pictures, it doesn't matter. What I've observed is that those that follow you, you know, follow your ministry, they don't always want, and that's persons that truly follow your ministry and love what you do.
Yeah.
They don't always expect that music has to drop, you know, now, or because you've got us accustomed to it happening at so on to a particular time, that it must happen. For me, I have recognized that the fact that you remain consistent in you know, the message, whether it be via posting a picture or status or whatnot, that keeps you know, those that support you going. That can be an encouragement. That it's not necessary that you have to release music because prime example, you know, and I know some folks may not agree with what I'm saying, and some folks being creatives, I guess, but when you look at like Kirk Franklin, for me, Kirk has become much more consistent in releasing music the last, if it's 10 years now, right? But at a point, Kirk was rather silent, and everybody still loved Kirk Franklin. Yes, okay, he built himself up to, he built himself up to where he needed to be, but there was him taking the time to do whatever he had to do, which was, if you listen to him talk about, you know, that period of time where there wasn't much music coming from him, there was a lot of reflecting, a lot of trying to better himself and whatnot, and those that supported his music, and this is on a global scale, I didn't see anyone complaining about, you know, there's nothing from him. You know, they were kind of like, you know, I can't wait for when he does come back with stuff, and he did come back with stuff. You know, and even then, there is usually a 4 to 3 year wait period before any more good music.
Right.
Since he actually came back in a much more active way, right? And then Instagram was still popping off, and he wasn't on Instagram for a while. I think it was only in 2016 or so Kirk Franklin joined Instagram.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a matter of, once you've given those that support your ministry your heart, once you've shown your heart, I should say, and that being through your music, through what you've posted prior and whatnot, I think those that truly support you, they're like, you know what, no need for an explanation per se, and then if you feel led to give an explanation, I don't see the harm in it, because it never hurts anyone when it is you tell those that support you, tell you that, hey, this is what's been going on, or hey guys, you have stuff coming, but you're gonna have to wait a little bit and whatnot. Prime example is, I'm not sure if you know, I believe you probably would, but Yeba. Yeba had about 2 songs for years. She was working on her debut album for years, and we were all waiting with bated breath, because you felt that authenticity from her. You were like, yeah, man, this girl has something. And by the time she dropped her debut album, everyone loved it, and she's doing what she's doing in terms of singing, this, that, and the other. But any singles, any album, she's done 1 or 2 features, but because you've been, you know the heart of this person, and the heart of this person from a fan or supporter perspective, I don't see it as a negative on you, when you are now trying to be the best you can be. It's your mental health also. There is that mental health aspect to this thing, because it does apply some pressure. Gospel music or not, it applies some pressure, a lot of pressure, in terms of when you're investing financially into creating these singles or projects, and you also have to look at the business end of stuff, and then dealing with having churches, understand this, because there are some that do, some that still don't or don't want to. So you're dealing with all of this and looking at, okay, how can I recoup the investment made in this single or this project and whatnot? I don't see an issue with it, but at the same time, is it really
necessary?
Is it really needed to be necessary? Because for me, it's a matter of, and let me add this before we go on to anything else. Once you believe in yourself, you will always remain consistent no matter what. There's always going to be something that is going to push you to still put out some form of content that is still going to feed the audience, feed those that are looking out for new material, or just wanting to be inspired or encouraged. That desire for greatness in your life, that desire for, yes, I need to achieve this, I need to get out there in a bigger, better way, that is always going to keep you going. So even if you need to take that step back, that break, what I've recognized or what I've realized is that the desire for that greatness, the desire for wanting to see lives changed and what that is still going to keep you going. That's still going to have you creating some form of content in some way, shape or form.
So what would you say has been one of your greatest challenges or even pet peeves as a creative?
One of the greatest challenges has been still having to face or deal with specific churches that refuse to accept that, hey, what I am doing can and should be compensated. The service that I'm and this is where the business side of Mekaiel kicks in. The service that I'm providing, it costs. It's costly. It costs. So yes, the gospel is free. A friend of mine who is also a gospel artist, he said it best in terms of breaking it down just recently. The gospel is free. Means in which to get the gospel out there expensive. So with that, I think we should all show that form or level of appreciation in terms of, hey, okay, this is what is required, X amount is required because you're coming. And as I say, I told someone just the other day, when a church or a concert calls me, they're honestly, if we're being real with ourselves, they are not calling us. They're not calling us because they just want singers. They're calling us because, hey, I saw you,
you
on
represent
YouTube,
something.
wherever. You represent something. You're gonna shift the atmosphere in a way that I want that. I want it to be that way, or I want it. And for me, it's like, okay, if that is the case, then hey, the same way you're gonna have to book the sound guy, and book the lighting and pay for the decor and this, that, and the other. There's that also in regards to calling the vocalist, especially the vocalist that does his or her original material. So for me, that has still been a pet peeve in terms of some churches that refuse to understand that or see that or respect it.
So how do you navigate that though? Because I mean, you need to be, I mean, what they call it? They call it an honorarium or something of the sort. If you are doing something, and of course it comes with its own set of costs. How do you navigate that? Is it that you use contracts? Like for somebody who's listening, who's experiencing the same set of issues, what would you advise that person? Like, what is something that you've learned since starting in music ministry?
Honestly, yes. There comes that point where contracts are needed for specific things. Doesn't matter if it's a church or an event, contracts are needed for specific things. However, what I always like to say or remind folks is that because we're in the Caribbean, sometimes you're gonna have to do things slightly different. Yeah. So that means sometimes you know what, if it is and you will get to know, because once you're serious about this, you will better understand the community that you're a part of, which is that you easily can pick up, and this is when you, especially if you don't have management or anything of the sort, you're easily going to be able to pick up that, okay, this church looks as if they're going to be one that's going to have a problem with contracts, so I'm going to use the alternative. I'm going to only have an email sent to them, but email in a way where it is structured in a way where, yes, and that assures me that, okay, this has to be done. This, they know that they have to keep their word, to this, that, and the other. So there's understanding that, and then also sometimes there are relationships that are built up, whether it be with you and the pastor or you and the first elder, or doesn't matter who is calling you at times. Sometimes with some churches you've built a relationship with specific persons, and with that it's easy to simply say, hey, all right, make sure so and so is the case, and you get what needs to be given. In my case also, there is also I do a lot of for me, I don't do a lot of or hit a lot of events. There are a lot of churches that I hit and that I go to and minister, and those churches, you know, those churches that I go to, a lot of it is from me also having, whether it be relationships or not, just saying, hey, here's what, have my team, or if it's just me, you know, sitting back and saying, okay, how do we get them to have us or hear us, because there are some churches that still, you know, aren't aware of who you are and whatnot. So for me, I go about it in a way where I say, here's what, this is who I am, you know, this, that, and the other, because that doesn't go away. To me, I think that doesn't go away, and that's a fact. That doesn't go away in terms of letting some churches that aren't aware of who you are, letting them know, hey, I exist, this, that, and the other. Would love to come and minister, you know, at your event or at your program or this, that, and the other, or host an evening of worship, and that in itself, it, you know, it helps.
Gospel music has the business side attached to it, and just as any other genre, if you're not knowledgeable, if you're not aware of what is supposed to take place and the protocols and, you know, the legal aspect of things, at the end of the day, there is a business aspect, and you could always end up in a very sticky situation. What they say, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So I think that's a sound word of advice, you know. Be knowledgeable, always seek information. It could really save you a world of trouble. Before we wrap up, I could not do this interview without asking you how your faith has influenced your art. Because I know that, well, I'm gonna assume that you're Adventist, because you told me Happy Sabbath the other day. So how has that influenced you? Has that ever caused any difficulties in terms of like Friday night events? How do you navigate that? What is your thought process behind it? And what is it like being a gospel recording artist and an Adventist?
All right. Let me. Not how do I answer this? I know how I'm going to answer this. It's just me
wording it.
The best approach to it.
Yeah.
So, as I would have mentioned to you prior, this year I'm celebrating 12 years of being in gospel music, and it truly has been God that has kept me going in this thing called gospel music, because I'm just sure. Some people say red skin. I don't really think so. Brown skin dude from Trinidad, the Caribbean, that has aspirations and goals to take his ministry much further than the Caribbean. You know, it must go far beyond the Caribbean. It's for the Caribbean, yes, but it must go beyond that. And for me, I made up my mind from day one when I decided I was going to jump into this thing, that I was not going to waver in my faith, and that being as a Seventh-day Adventist. I grew up in it, and I've had my own personal situations, personal experiences, I should say, that has influenced or added to why I'm not going to leave my faith. And I made that decision because what I didn't want was for there to be this view that Mekaiel is he's rather shaky. When I go to these interviews on radio or TV and whatnot, anyone that meets me or has interviewed me in some way, shape, or form, they have either said, hey, the Adventist artist, or they are aware that I am Adventist, and the respect level that I've received is due to the fact that I've shown them that, hey, here's what, the same way I respect that you're Pentecostal or you're Catholic or you're whatever, respect that this is where my faith lies, you know.
Right.
Because we understand, yes, you know, a lot of our favorite gospel artists are Pentecostal for the most part, you know. However, for me, listen, there's a shift happening, there's a shift coming that is for both the church, the Adventist church, and also outside of it, where we now are being put in a position and placed in specific spaces where we are going to add to the conversation in a major way. This is why I can't come wishy-washy when it comes to my faith. I need for everyone that meets me, that greets me, to know that, hey, he's an artist or Christian artist that happens to be Seventh-day Adventist, you know. And it should not affect, you know, what is being preached. You know, it shouldn't affect what is being said in song. You know, yes, we would write on specific topics that probably sometimes would not have that connective tissue with other faiths. However, if we're honest, our favorite gospel artists, when they write specific songs too, you know, when we listen to them as Adventists, there are one or two songs where like, well, that doesn't have any connective tissue with where I stand or what the Bible says or this, that, and the other.
Right.
And you're like, I respect that. That's their belief. You know, that's what from the word. Next song. You know. Right. So for me, it's like I couldn't do the jumping in and out or leaving the faith, because it outside of it being what I grew up in, there have been the necessary experiences that has, you know, rocked me to my core, where I'm like, okay, God, I know for sure that I'm on the right path. I know for sure that I'm in the right faith, and you know what, you take me where you need me to go. And yes, that me being Adventist has created a bit of caution to others. You know, most are a bit like, not sure if they have you on this. I'm sure they have you in our church and stuff. Just earlier this year in January, I had a discussion with a pastor, a Pentecostal pastor, and he was honest with me. He was like, Brother Mekaiel, you know, love what I'm hearing, love your ministry. I actually saw you minister and whatnot. However, you know, the elders and deacons and whatnot, I'm not sure. And I was like, okay, pastor, understood. For me, I always tell persons, listen, a note this year or a note this month can change next month, can change next year. It's a matter again of you know, that consistency, a matter again of, I know my calling, I'm going to at it, and some way or the other, God is going to say, you know what, all right, this is the time for me to step into that space and minister to them, and you never know what is going to happen there.
As we wrap up, I just wanted to tell us where we can find your music, and which social media platforms you're on. By the way, for those of you who are listening, I will be posting snippets of some of his songs for you to just scroll through on Instagram. So after this, I'm just gonna go through the catalog and just pick out the ones that are my favorite.
Yeah. If they're looking for me on social media, just look for me at Mekaiel Official. So Mekaiel Official Mekaiel Official on all social media platforms, also YouTube, right? So Mekaiel Official. And if you're searching for me on Apple Music or just any streaming platform, it's Mekaiel. So Mekaiel, Mekaiel, and you're sure to get my music.
So that's Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, all the works. You can find the music in all of these places. All right, sounds good. I tell my husband and I told Sheridan, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm trying to reach Trinidad this year. I don't know how it's going to work out, but the Lord knows. I don't know, but the Lord knows. I am trying for this year. Not this year, next year, but I am coming one way or the other. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this discussion. I believe it was a good one. And I really do hope that we can do this again soon. For those who are listening, if you have questions for Mekaiel, you can feel free to send them whether on Instagram or if you want to send it through the Anchor app. For those of you who listen to it from there, feel free to do so. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a really good discussion. So we close out here, guys. We pick up back next week. As you know, this is the Kingdom Creatives podcast where we educate, motivate, and entertain. Thank you for being our wonderful guests. Do have a wonderful evening. Blessings. Bye.
Make a way. God have the final say.